Right. From a comment suggestion, thankfully, I always like to read comments, and a suggestion on what to do in the video is always interesting because viewer interaction. And to be fair, this one I was quite pleased with. I was kind of thinking about doing the same if people were interested. So yes. Anyway, I'd like to thank what's called Even Matrix for this on the last video on the MBT, because I'd call it a main battle tank, because it effectively was. Speed, kind of. Speed's not really important in Space Invaders, because you generally sort of kill yourself with more speed you build up. So, while that was entertaining, he said, nice, you should try and make variants such as the ones that have different armaments. Maybe a railgun for heavier targets, or AA, the one that uses autocannons, which I thought, well, I kind of did want to mess around with the hull, because the hull's quite nice, and the turret's quite nice. And really, there isn't much to improve. Maybe how the internals work, interacting with the door, could be changed up, but as this is the base model we're looking at currently. And only the real downside of armor is the side of the turret, which I did want to make wider than the hull, but realistically I could probably use another 3 blocks of heavy armor for it's then matching up with the same sort of toughness as the hull. Because even though there's a shot trap of the fact of the gap's there so it works better, but you can, in 1 or 2 shots, puncture and hit critical mainline systems in the middle. Which is interesting, but you can also one-shot the gun. It's a thing. The gun itself is a weakness, which is a sad part, but it's one of them. So while it is interesting, I started messing around, so we'll quickly show off what's changed in this, which is currently the armament. So this one single high velocity weapon, well, I say high velocity, it's kind of meh velocity, it punctures probably a good 5-6 light armor blocks, 3-4-5 heavy armor blocks, depending on how lucky you are and how straight it does. Give or take. Sometimes it does 2. It depends on if it's a fully armor block, if it's got weight, if it's got this. Depends on stuff like that. And I've tripled it. So we'll enter the hull and go to this. So this is a tri-cannon design, and roughly the spread's quite even, so theoretically this will have a bit more of an impact. And of course, I haven't tested this against actual armor yet. It's just a variant I made up. So where this has a pretty okay impact, this should hit a little bit harder. So quite simple. I had it's 3 blocks wide. I thought might as well try it. Then I installed the railgun version, which has a bit more of an armoured shroud, because the railgun is a more expensive block in terms of parts. Let's go grab ourselves a welder and compare this for a moment. So 1 cannon is 15 steel plates there, 1 computer, 10 tubes, 5 metal grids, 10 crush components, and over 10 plates. A railgun has power cells and superconductor components, which are a bit more expensive. 20 plates, 20 computers, 6 less tubes, but a bit more construction components, and it technically is not much more expensive on plates, because it's got, what was that, 10 and 15? So that's 25. And 25? Huh, that's interesting, didn't know that. 25 and 25 for steel plates, I thought it'd be more. Anyway, yes, it has got some more expensive parts, which is why I bothered to put an armor shroud around it, just because every little helps with more rare components to take up the weapon, which I've also changed, and this is suitably named the Miltank V2, which is the version 2 of the gun on top, with a railgun, which works as a railgun, center lined, nice and all, and pretty standard. This is basic modification, nothing too complicated. The gun's still the same. Until then, we can get on to certain variants like this, which is, for some reason, abandoned the idea of a useful turret and put a turret on top of a turret. So, this is kind of dumb because I have got a turret on a turret, or a rotating thing, but we have added on top these. So these could either use as block tanks, as in targets, and these turrets are just here for AA defense, or I suppose technically decoys, whatever. Because it has changed up the system slightly, or I should probably say these are just testing turret types on top of a model hull, because there is no main gun. I could probably fit the main gun back in, but these haven't got it on. And there is a potential version where I can add large turrets to a small grid, which could be looked into. But these are just some daft things. I've mainly just put steel in, because I kind of worked this way around, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, kind of, yeah. I did this one next, so we'll get onto that. Effectively, I created this, which is a base model AA turret hinge system, which is why it's heavily modified from this, and that's why these turned out so weird, because I was just fiddling along. We have a Gatling gun version. It's still confined in the heavy side turret, which does slow down its speed a little bit, but its up and down is lighter. So it's got some AA capabilities. We'll get back to that in a second. And we have a second version here, which has got the alternative Gatling guns. We have, interestingly, 9 cannons. So I thought, well, they are one block. So this, potentially, if we're hitting maybe a large ship, or anything with decent size of armor or blocks, is a scatter cannon. It scatters a bit more, and there is some variation in how they scatter slightly. They are still quite contained, but ideally it would puncture and scatter inside of a ship which you hit. So it's more of a high bombardment weapon, which is mainly what most of these are. Allows us to aim up high and bombard. This is an autocannon, a bit more of a heavier weapon system. Probably better for AA because autocannons are quite good against small ships for plinking away, which is nice. And then we have a more odd one, which I thought was a test. It was a rocket version. It's got 2 reloadable rockets on. Bit disappointing in fire rates, but it is there, so it is a potential possibility. I wanted it to have a feeding system, so you have to do it manually, but you could always have the standard rockets and do something different like that. But then here comes the interesting thing, which is really why the turret's been mauled with so much to get to that point, is this high bombardment railgun. So it's still got some forward firing capability, and I had it, like spike, had it nicely sat within itself. Which means, basically, the railgun just has a nice high firing arc. And honestly, this is one which I'm quite happy with. The rest of these are a bit daft, and they're kind of a bit meh. Depends on situation and how combat effective they are. But this, potentially, is quite good, because it will have a, again, smaller craft, like fighters and gunships, not so much. But potentially larger vehicles has the potential to have the most punch. It's relatively pretty cool looking. So yeah, that is that. But I think I have got a... I have got a stripped down version of a utility hull, which I'm half wanting to make a an engineering style vehicle, which has got a crane as a tug system on, which can be done. But this has just got regenerated storage, so it's a bit more cargo space. So we've got cargo, we've got some more cargo in there, because I do believe that you can't somehow access this in here. This is why this needs some modification, because I'm an idiot and built it all internally buried. But this has got 1 hull mounted cargo and 3 in the turret. So ideally, it has some modifications to be done, some better access. But you know, I said these are kind of designed, and most of my things I built to put in survival to be useful need to be modified slightly. But I kind of want to make a crane version, a utility version, like a sort of simple reverse crane to grab onto the back of a hull and drag it along as a towing vehicle, and maybe a bridge layer. I'm tempted to try. That's not going to go well, is it though? So yeah. But yeah, this troop transport version, very simple. To keep it plainly, nothing's really changed. It's just got a cargo and a connector for some use. The whole version I think still has a connector on, can't remember. But yeah. Also, I've made it slightly taller on the sides, so the troop section's got a bit more cover. Which is the only really main difference between the hull. Which is why it's a bit different in shape. So yeah, that's that. I think we can do some testing now. Let's get ourselves... So I know the sides are the weakest point. We can mess around with our three main tank versus tank fighters, the actual intended targets. Actually, if I remember right, I might have got one thing. Did I switch up? No, I didn't. I thought I changed that on a model. Did I? Rail. Tank, that's got modded. Must have not. Must be losing my mind. Alright. I thought I had a version where I changed up the top-mounted gun, but technically this top-mounted gun replaced with an autocannon, one of these cannons. So yeah, so this can be changed out. I thought I had a version of that done, because it's a simple feeding through, so yeah. That's also a possibility, so let's actually get back to testing before I lose my mind thinking I did something else. So let's spin this lovely cannon around. And take our target. So, to test effectiveness, we'll fire at the front plate. The turrets will act a bit differently. So, firing, direct hit. Let's then exit this as quick as we can. Get into this. Turn around this. So technically this will have a higher ammo consumption rate, but it does damage. So this is the sort of counterpoint of, well, if one cannon loses too quickly, this is a bit more, but you know, it's still got the older fact that this is on a hinge. If you hit the hinge, the entire front thing's useless. So, let's fire. That's probably a bit higher than the other one, but as proven its damage difference, I will get the railgun. Potentially I want to modify the hull further because there are some driving characteristics that could be changed and our modifications, but this is quite a good brawling heavy armoured tank. There is some sense that resource wise it could be built better, but there we go. So like I said, the turret, you lose it a lot quicker than you do the hull. So we got ourselves here. Let's grab a spectator camera. The first shot from the assault gun. What was it? Artillery? What was it? What was it called? Assault cannon, yes, that's what it's called. So we have, like I said, about 4 or 5 heavy blocks of armour completely ripped through. It's ricocheted up slightly, and it hasn't punctured the front armour heavily. It's warped, but this is why I got blast doors to stop the warping going too far. But this is still a solid chunk of steel, and it can take a few more of these. Now the free cannons, which did a little bit more damage because it kind of aimed a bit higher, jumped up, took out a door, damaged this door, went in here, and I think that's it, really. So yeah, like I said, a bit more damage, and the railgun shot did a bit more of a, well, it's like 10 blocks in it, so it's like gone through here, punctured here, so it's punctured through 2 blast door blocks, and a bunch of half blocks, and to here, and it's gone to here, and it's hit this airspace where the turret controller is. So yeah, a railgun shot could probably one-shot the front of the tank, which is why it's a bit more deadly. So we'll try this time to actually aim for the turret to prove what the differences in penetration values are to the front of it. So firing, that was okay. Little bit of squeeze. Firing. Yes, disabled that tank. And we'll go back to this one. Let's hope it's actually recharged in time. Bit of a tight squeeze. Ooh, that's done nasty. Right. So to prevent the differences, we've had the cannon clipped here. It is skid across here, took out the camera, so we have made this a bit more difficult to fight in. It's missed the hinge on the conveyor block for converting into a small conveyor tube, and it's clipped the top of the turret here, so pretty nasty gash in the armour, but nothing critical's been hit. And what's good about these cannons is they sort of bounce around, so it's kind of a fairer weapon on a tank. It's lighter, it's not as deadly, and then we've got this shot, which is took out a spotlight, I believe, and it scattered around and potentially got itself lost against this blast door section here. Another shot is potentially landed somewhere in between here and here. I think it might have gone a bit lower, but it's taking out some blocks here, it's taking out the gun. The gun's probably eps level much up, it's got some block damage here, and it's somehow clipped up here potentially. Like I said, this is a fair bit more aggressive of damage compared to this, but it still has the same sort of bouncing effect. And the railgun, which is just penetration nonsense, is either hit here, gone down, taking out the conveyor and the hinge itself, gone through and got stuck here. So for doctrine alone, it has proven that these are quite for simple changes. Like I said, all I've done is ripped out the front of the armour, 3 guns, ripped out vertically and slotted in a railgun and some armour panels. Like I said, the tank designed fairly well. It took a bit of punishment. So let's do one more, and let's hit the main hull again. I know the side's a bit weaker in some sense, but it is based upon the old frontal armour scheme. That's one shot straight to the semi-lower glacis. It's kind of a midpoint issue. It's not particularly realistic, because realistically you wouldn't have it as pointy. Ooh, that looked nasty. And then one more for the railgun, and we shall prove its worth once again as being terrifying. That's a bit lower than the other 2 were. We'll go back to the first one, on the wrong side of it. I'm over here, right. So this is where it's punctured, it's clipped this block, it's gone straight in, and it is not massively touched, it's might have damaged it slightly, which we're going to have to prove by being in here. Oh. Ooh. Ooh, that was not good. Um, I've done a whoopsie. Oh. Ugh. Ugh. Whoops. Alright, let's try and inspect this damage in person. I may have just properly done it in. That's blocking it. So yes, it has taken out 6 interior plates. So the front cannon, full on puncture, not having any bounce, which is why angling sometimes is quite useful. Going pretty much straight through the armour is slightly damaged at the seat, and also me doing the weird spectator thing has murdered. Was that the railgun version? Oh yeah, it must have been the railgun version that's done that, okay. Right, doesn't matter, we'll not do any more of these anyway after this. We'll move on to the other hulls. So this is the 3 cannons. They've merged quite nicely, and yeah, they've took out the seats. So they've done some weird sort of angling for being straightforward. It's kind of, they've either merged, hit themselves, self-destructed on themselves or whatever, but one has got through and actually taken out the seats and done some more warping, which might have been what killed the seats as well. So quite interesting, a little bit more variation than the single cannon did, but the single cannon was quite a lucky shot and quite square on, so there's that. And the railgun, which went low, had shown its worth by penetrating all the way here through pure armor. So like I said, if this was a bit higher, it would have probably nailed the seat, but a bit of luck of having quite a low shot has gone through the lower underplating. But it's potentially, if there's more damage done around here, disconnect the seat from the actual vehicle. So yes, some interesting things. So let's now grab, in the previous video, the Sparrow. I think it's the only thing I have in that. I feel like I can hover. I've got a couple of planes. Which is not fun because this thing is practically a flying tank in itself, but we shall. The Gatling gun versions don't matter because they're both the same gun, just different size technically. So we'll spin this thing around. Still quite weighty turn speed, but it can be turned up if need be. And what could this do? So, as shown, against light armor, this is it could nicely chew through with some sustaining fire. So depending on if it's more helicopter type of flying, you could do some serious damage. Anything fast moving, you could do some serious damage, but normally fighters are quite light, so you potentially could do some serious mechanical, like I said. How quick are we shooting out some of these thrusters? You think a pass or two and you've potentially taken out some front thrusters maybe. I mean, this is kind of surprising how well this is staying in the air. I think I've just proven how of a absolute flying bricker built this, but as showing, as I'm literally having to rip through the entire ship, as I've shot this thing so many goddamn thrusters. But by looking at some of these atmos, they're being pushed. I will find you thrusters and I will take you out. I want to bring this down. Oh, there we go. Not particularly dramatic, but we have ripped the living shite out of this. Holy hell. So as shown, through light armor, glass, batteries, thrusters, gyroscopes, and the like, it is possible to damage an aircraft. And this is a quite tanky thing, and you saw how long this took to take out, but giving a fighter's normally got a literal thruster or two. If we're thinking small fighter, light fighter, if it's got armor, it's more likely to suffer with a thruster loss. So this thing is successful. If it hits, it will rip. That's the idea. Even though, like I said, it doesn't turn quick, so you're not tracking with this. You're lining up, firing, doing some decent damage, and bringing down the aircraft. In a potential crash, because they can't brake anymore if you've taken out any front reverse thrusters or such as the like. Give or take. Now let's go on the fun one, the high bombardment. This is probably more effective, like I said, at aiming something hovering, which we can test on quite a heavy vehicle. But let's just say you're against a small craft. Shots take longer to charge up, so we'll just have to inspect the damage on that. But these are more penetration shots, so this is more of a nutcracker per se. You're firing and you know you're penetrating, so you're gonna potentially have to hit higher value targets, as in aim for obvious spots where you can tell where there's components. Like I said, I've sort of fired loosely into the cargo bay here. There's not much here, but it spiked up and took out a hydrogen tank, which left a pretty nasty gash in this. We fired out a thruster bank, like I said, which is torn through key systems. So technically, if this was flying around, I've potentially lost some hydrogen ability, as in the fact that this might have snapped the conveyor system pretty badly. But this can run off ammo, which is why my ships typically don't have the, especially when I'm designing them to be utility like this, where they can sort of do everything and survive. They can take a beating and still theoretically fly, but if you're working with a more cheaper resource craft, because this is going to be a pain to build survival, it's in some sense overkill if you want to create a pure ammo version and hydrogen mix. Make a bit more sense this full sort of conversion. So we've nipped this has gone in, ripped through here, gone out. Like I said, this is a bit more of a, the railguns are more surgical in nature, especially on small grid. So potentially we're looking at reactor kills be more effective, but on a smaller vehicle we're looking at batteries, we're looking at potentially killing main systems to then cause it to run on high power usage, hydrogen tanks. Potentially, if it's thruster base, if it's small enough and thruster base, you could kill main thrusters, and it doesn't have enough side thrusters to do the extra damage. But also, some of the rail around seem to be bouncing off light armor. This is clearly a bit weird. They're doing some weird things, or is that just the effects? But as shown, we have just torn through this pretty nastily. Also remember, this has some knockback effect. So potentially you could hit something and cause something to flip over, do something weird. Like I said, this is very basic static firing tests. But I think that has proven what it could do if given the chance. I'm going to spend all day doing that. Good slow firing. Now the rocket, I don't know, rockets are weird. They're expensive to build, but they're also weirdly okay for damage against stuff. So we can do this. it just fires 2 rockets per shot, which is nice. So potentially, if you're landing shots here, you are doing damage, splash damage, which is quite good for anti-aircraft, as shown. So, like I said, potentially quite powerful. But it is a slow-moving rocket trying to hit a target, which will have some difficulties to achieve. But it is splash damage, so potentially if you're looking at a mixed defense system, the railguns could potentially puncture and snipe some key components, and the rockets could probably, well, rip through the rest of it. Gatling guns could do some more ripping of their own. So there is some benefits, some downsides between each weapon system and the effectiveness. Here's the autocannons. This is what I'm actually probably gonna we're having a bit of lag spike, so make sure we actually have a video and not have too much an issue with crashing. And let's rid of these burning racks. I have a feeling they're being a bit awkward. Let's copy that so we have a target to shoot. An example. Like I said, this is just basic weapons testing. And like the Gatling gun, but a bit slower. I would say these are 50-50. They're heavy enough and slow enough where you're not wasting ammo and missing too much, but it probably will be a bit more expensive than Gatling ammo. But also they probably punch above their weight for their ammo cost. But the Gatlings, we probably fired a few thousand rounds. This we're probably firing a few hundred in comparison for the same sort of damage. So potentially on preference alone, this could be quite good, as in the sense, like I said, small aircraft maybe relying on 1 or 2 thrusters for the manoeuvrability, instead of this thing relying on these few dozen. But these are nicely and chunkily ripping through armour and components fairly evenly, which is quite nice. As shown, we are showing no mercy to the hydrogen system. Let's see if we can go reactors. Bang, 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 bang. And with this being a bit more precision based, it has a bit more of a longer range feel to it as well, because the farther the distance, the spread's still quite tight at distance, so this potentially is the preferred anti-aircraft system out of all of them. Because the Gatling gun, while good, it's a few thousand rounds to fire. I've made it easy to hover now because I've removed a fair bit of weight there. Let's take out that big thruster. Are you dropping now? Hydrogen. Oh, there we go. Like I said, we're not completely obliterating targets, but we are manually ripping through them in some sense. Which was the intended idea. Also, this is, like I said, it's kind of unfair testing against this because it is quite literally a brick. And the last thing to test are the turrets, which we won't test, no point. People already know what they can do. But quite interestingly enough, we are shredding components, which is quite interesting. So it's one of them where, depending on the vehicle, these perform differently. But this is definitely intended for truly murdering heavier targets. I say that and it does nothing. These might just be the weakest ones in Space Engineers. Oh, they're a bit too railgunny-fied where they are puncturing more than killing than originally intended for scatter. I have a feeling it is doing more than we think, but probably the other ones were a bit more brutal in the fact they were ripping apart more of the armour. But this potentially is doing not as good puncture damage as a railgun going straight through, but is puncturing nonetheless. I'm spamming the mouse currently. Fire! Right, let's have a quick glance at what we've done to this damn thing, because that's a bit awkward. So yeah, like it is doing very damage. And it has probably on a more condensed target, like the railgun, it would do some serious. I mean, I've killed a reactor, I didn't know what I hit. I've not done any backs, and I haven't really been aiming there, but it's chewed through heavily. Multiple things, it's gone through here. It is doing serious damage, it isn't all for naught. And the impact is quite good on these. Should we turn it around for fun? Let's turn the ship around for fun. Let's actually hit the good components. Because you may get a rear shot on this. I'll do it back in this. Let's do this. I mean, it's clear we've gone through multiple things. We've turned the insides into an interesting collection of switch sheets, and the internal lap motor fell down. There's loose components. If you're flying fast, they'll be doing their own damage, ripping through the ship. So like I said, it is swings and roundabouts, should we say. There we go. It's like interesting with man-made turrets is that we are doing some quite interesting style of damage. Because typically, you know, blocks would, like I said, you'll lose stuff like the rocket, and the Gatling gun turrets would normally sort of delete everything that you've hit. The Gatling gun normally does shred a fair bit. So let's say we were aiming for assistance back here. That felt meaty as all hell. Let's aim for important assistance back here. That's silenced the hydrogen, yep. Let's puncture straight through it, so. Ooh, there we go. We've nailed something important there. But it's recovered. That's interesting. I think there's enough batteries to keep this thing afloat anyway. And the landing gear saved it. So we are, like I said, if we are talking about moving targets, doing quick, fast, and terrible damage is generally what's intended. And these shots have done pretty well. So like I said, depending on how well you use them, how well they hit, what style of ship you're hitting, you can either one-shot kill or seriously critically damage something enough to crash, or enough to make them consider not trying again. So yeah, I think these can be justified as decent AA. And the only thing left that I did, which I did say I will do before this turns into another hour-long video, holy hell, you're getting special delivery on this one, is... where is my own creation? Can't remember the difference between these two, but this should still fly in here. This is the battle cruiser I got running after the Discord thing, and then I built. So and it's heavy armor. It also flies in atmosphere, and there's a space version which is a bit more decent. So to put it in perspective, any sort of thruster damage is critical, especially for atmosphere, because you know it will fall out the sky. But it has got hangers. It's got a bunch of thrusters on the internal side of things. Slightly had to be trimmed out some stuff. Yeah, I've got interior somewhere. If I can find here, I've got the interior. That's what this is. This is missing the engine bay. So there's a more modern version that has more interior space. This is a bit more pulled back because guess what? I was losing the ability to have this fly in atmosphere. Also, my private version. Well, I did actually give the other version as well. So yeah. Like I said, this had to be trimmed. Basically, I got asked to build this, and it's like, yeah, can it fly in atmosphere? I went, oh, but it's heavy armor. Alrighty then. So my intended idea was potentially this might be able to threat to that. Of course, if it had turrets, we'd be a certain level of screwed. But potentially we're doing stuff like that. Let's get another one in because I can't be asked swinging that for reload. I'll just bounce between the two probably. We're talking about most large ships flying in atmosphere aren't going to be this heavy because, you know, losing something like this is a bit extreme. But for small railguns to puncture like this to a large ship, it is concerning. And you think, how many of these could you field compared to the resources on this? So if a technical balance setting of resources for this compared to that were met up, where it's like probably about 50 tanks of this. I mean, these tanks aren't exactly cheap, but they're not as expensive as a whole large ship. It's like I said, intended to sort of actually threaten large grids. Which is kind of difficult to do. As it could just probably barely take out a large thruster. Good idea, James. Let's go underneath the damn thing. So yes, it takes 2 railgun shots to actually kill part of this, but like I said, this has got sheer pretty good verticality on this, so this could probably nail this pretty good. Would bolting more reactors onto this make it to reload quicker? I can't remember if doing something stupid like this, if we could overcharge the reload rate to something a little bit more fun. Because it is electricity based and ammo based. Firing. I still think it's got a standard reload though, which is probably a nerfing feature. But it would be good if you could yeah, it is. But the quieter is a sound effects issue, but yeah. Like I said, technically, given if a ship wasn't this extreme, we could actually, you know, kill it. Or at least be a credible threat. Saying, like I said, 2 shots, large thruster down. I forget how good this thing is flying. Here we go. It's going down. Oh no! 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 I'm in. Help! Help! It's sinking. It's... Go on, tank. You can survive this. Ugh. Where have you come from? Eee. Anyway, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been a bit of a longish one. And I'll see you all on the next one. Like, subscribe and all that. And yeah. Comment down below any suggestions. Look at this fucking... Ah, Christ. What have I done? What have I done? I can't hit the damn end button.